I'm Matt Gray, and I'm joined weekly by Dr. J. We're both certified financial planners, and we talk about how child-free life impacts your finances. This is Child-Free Life and Money. It's Matt Gray here on episode 9 of the Child-Free Life and Money podcast, here joined by Dr. J. And today we are talking about side gigs, other ways to bring in income. I know, Dr. J, you and I see it quite often. People are asking about how to get additional income streams or things like that to help achieve their financial goals. And child-free people are in a unique opportunity a lot of times to be able to pursue something like that. And you really are pretty well versed in the idea of side gigs and how people can get those set up. So let's kick it off with how does someone get into a side gig, find their side gig, but also why are child-free people more able, if that's even true, to have a side gig?
Yeah, I think what's happening is because we're child-free, we have more flexibility. So we can actually start our own cupcake business or whatever else. I mean, you and I are both great examples. If we had kids and other things, we'd probably have to have a regular job. Seriously, that's just kind of how that works. So that's part of it. I think the other part of it is there's this thing, and I'm going to ask you about this, Matt. I love people. I want a passive income stream.
Yeah.
What the heck is that?
Yeah. I do hear people want passive income. I think it's quite common in the whole FIRE movement, or if people aren't familiar, the financial independence, retire early, is something that people pursue to get out of the 9-to-5 job as fast as they can. Passive income is kind of this mythical creature almost that people all want it. And I think that the most common ways of getting passive income, or the one that's the textbook version, is like a rental property or something like that. Other investments can do it as well, but I think really rental properties are the most popular one, or the stereotypical one. There are a few other options as well. I know you and I have talked about it in the past, things like if you create online content or something that can generate income for you, but there's still work to do up front. But yeah, I think passive income isn't always necessarily the way to go, although it is, again, so many people want to find that passive income. How do I make money without doing anything, or at least doing the least amount of work? So side gigs can come in terms of passive income, or jobs, or consulting, or Etsy, or whatever else. Do you find there are certain types of side gigs that are more common than others, or what do you find people generally pursuing?
Well, I think where I'm going with this is passive income. The only one that's really passive you do nothing about is you're investing. You kind of set it and forget it.
Right, yeah.
Passive. To me, running a set of rentals is a side gig.
Sure.
Or even an online course or whatever, they're all businesses.
Right.
And I think what happens is people seem to think about it as it's something different. No, the real answer is you have your day job. That's the one that pays you on a W-2. That's the standard employment. Almost anything else is a side gig or a small business.
Right.
And I point that out because people go, well, I drive for Uber. You have a small business is what that means.
Right.
They're paying you on a 1099. You are a small business. You say, well, I want to do XYZ. That's all side gigs. And then we get, well, I want a second job, which also could be considered a side gig if you want.
Sure.
But it's a matter of what are you trying to accomplish? So let's start with the classic gig work. This is the new popular one.
Right.
This is Uber, DoorDash, or Rover. There's all these different apps that get people to do jobs.
Right.
Here's the first thing to keep in mind. You are running your own business. The way Uber looks at it, so if Matt's driving for Uber, by the way, I haven't seen him drive, so I don't know if we should let him do that. But let's say Matt's driving for Uber. It's a bad idea, but we're going to go with it. First thing he has to do is realize Uber is actually paying Matt as a business, and the business technically pays Matt. That's kind of don't have to go so much into the paperwork, but that's kind of the way it's thought of.
Mm-hmm.
So that means Matt has to, pay for business expenses, meaning his car, has that business insurance on his car, which, by the way, that's one of the ones people screw up all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Your passenger insurance, as soon as you take money for anything, is no good. And
right.
They're like, you got a car crash and you took money? Nope, sorry.
Right.
So you have to have the right insurance. You have to file your own taxes, which includes paying estimated payments. You'll hear those called quarterlies, but they're not exactly on quarters because the IRS has to do something weird in there, but essentially every quarter, and also to your state. And you may need special insurance. And that's all just to drive for Uber. You know, okay, I'm going to go work for Rover and walk dogs. Same thing again.
Right.
You know, now we got insurance, we got taxes, we got all that. But people go, well, but I just, picked up this job on this app. Obviously, I don't need to do all that business stuff. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, it's important. As soon as you're earning any income on a 1099, which is basically a not an employee income form for the IRS, and that's for all of our American listeners, of course, then you are technically a business owner, or at least self-employed in that regard. And so there are other aspects to think about. Depends, I think, as well, how much you're making. Not that you don't have to do certain things, but it's not a business expense, or et cetera. To your point earlier, technically they're paying a business, which is paying you, even if you are the business. It's very different if you're making $500 a year doing something versus 50,000 a year. I think there are some different aspects there, but I agree with you that those are all side gigs, and having those independent incomes does make things more complex. There are more things to consider when doing that. And it depends on the side gig you have. Again, if it's involving other people directly, insurance or whatever else. So a lot of things to consider on that front. Absolutely.
And keep in mind, if you have that side gig, you are running your own small business. You can actually look at things like running your own 401k.
Correct.
So 401k or SEP IRA or other things for business. And kind of funny one in this one, if your business does well enough, you can put both the employee and the employer side in to a solo
Right.
401k.
Correct.
So you may actually be able to put more money away by having a side business. Keep in mind, though, your 401k balances between your work and your side gig have to, be understood, because there's still limits per year in how much you can put in on the employee side, but you gain the employer side. So there are like benefits to doing that. And I, there are a lot of people that used to make a lot of money doing side gigs. Now it's getting less and less and less. And, I don't know. I mean, now some states like California are starting to look at many of the side gig work, Ubers and others, and saying you're an employee.
Right.
I'm not sure how that's going to change the app and the way they pay and all that. I don't know.
Dr. J, you just opened like 4 cans of worms in that last statement about retirement plans, gig economy becoming employee economy, and what does that even mean? You just came up with like 3 or 4 more podcast episodes for us.
Well, that's my job, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what happens. People think about their side gigs and they're like, I just want to make money.
Right.
Well, first of all, if you just want to make money, go sell some stuff on Facebook Marketplace. Okay, you got stuff set around your house. You could just like sell the old couch you don't want. Nobody else wants it, but maybe get $50 for it.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to make more money? Stop buying crap. Like,
Right.
seriously, it's effectively the same thing.
Correct.
So there are ways to do that. One of the things when I see side gigs, people go, well, I have this hobby I want to turn to a side gig.
Right.
If you turn a hobby into a business, it's the surest way to make a hobby into something you hate. Let's be real.
All right.
I get people, I'm great at woodworking. Cool. And I'm going to sell these beautiful tables. Gorgeous. Yeah. And you know what you're going to do at the end? You're going to hate it, because customers, you're going to put 100 hours into something. They're going to be like, I don't want to pay you for that much time.
Right.
And then they're going to look at it and go, oh, you made a mistake here. I want a discount. Which then at that point, you want to like pick up the table and throw it across the room. But I mean, that's what happens when you take this hobby and business together. And you have to be very careful to realize you may turn something you like into something you hate. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty common, and now it turns something that used to do for fun into something that you now do for work. And I think that can definitely take the joy out of a hobby and out of something that you would usually do for fun. If there are now demands of you in that hobby, then that's less fun. Part of the point of a hobby is not to be demanded to do anything. You're doing it by choice. So I agree with you there. But are you discouraging the idea of side gigs, or hobbies as a side gig exclusively?
So I set what I call the McDonald's rule around side gigs or small business. And here's how this works. So I was just driving down the road, and here I'm in Mississippi, and it's the minimum wage here is $7.25, but McDonald's is paying between $14 and $17 an hour. Okay. So here's my question for you. If you're running a small business or side gig, the question is, do you make more per hour working at McDonald's? And I'm not saying anything bad about working at McDonald's. I'm just using this as a comparison group. If I'm going to make less than 15 bucks an hour doing a side gig or a small business, I should probably go work at McDonald's. I mean, by the way, actually go work at Lowe's or Home Depot. They have better benefits. But I'm like, go work a second
Whatever
job.
it is. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's the hard part of this. Now, if you're doing the business because it's your passion project, awesome. Let's do it. I get people because they're child free. They're like, I've always wanted to open the cupcake shop. Great. Let's be real. Not going to make $1 million at the cupcake shop, and that's okay. But now you're doing it for the return. Now, what? You're going to say people making millions on the cupcake shop?
How good are the cupcakes? No,
yeah. I mean, it's possible, but this is not Shark Tank, okay? I mean,
right.
Most businesses fail. My rule with businesses is you only start it with cash. You don't take out money to start a business. Because remember, if you take out a loan to start a business, you're signing for it personally.
Right.
So now if the business goes up, not only have you lost your job, you've also now have a giant loan.
Right.
So I'm going, all right, let's figure out what do you want to do and why. Now, if you're saying this business is where your passion is, then I'll ignore the McDonald's rule for a while. Like, seriously, we can do a passion. I enjoy it. You're essentially investing your time and money into that business. But that's different than saying, hey, I want to make money.
Right.
And now here's the other one. When it comes to small businesses, all these people online with their courses saying, do these 12 steps and I will get you $1 million. Look, if they were going to make that money, they would have just done it themselves.
Correct. I always have to laugh at them.
And okay, so a great example is Amazon arbitrage. Used to be that you could buy stuff at Walmart, ship it through Amazon and make money.
Mm-hmm.
You can't anymore because everybody knows about that.
Right.
I mean, there was somebody that made a lot of money doing that. Actually, like IKEA didn't ship for the longest time. They lived next to an IKEA and they would put labels onto IKEA boxes and ship it. Mm-hmm. That was a great business idea 10 years ago.
Right.
But now somebody's writing a course about how to do that.
Right.
Like, seriously, it still doesn't work. So it becomes one of those things of going, where's your passion? Mm-hmm. What do you want to do? What is it you want to get up in the morning and be like, yep, I'm willing to put that time and effort into? Matt and I both own our own business. And the downside of that is you work for a crazy person, and that crazy person is yourself.
Right.
I'm now at a point where I take Sundays off. So I get 1 day a week off. But even then, I'm still thinking through, well, what about this? And I got this. And, tomorrow, people go, well, you have more control of your hours. No, you don't, because your clients actually pick your hours now.
Right.
And they go, well, you have more flexibility. Maybe. I kind of have a little bit more.
Eventually.
But I always have something I need to be doing.
Right. Yeah. It's eventually, hopefully.
Yeah. So I think where I'm going is I'm going, cool. If that's what you want to do, if you have an entrepreneur heart, here's how you know if you have an entrepreneurial heart. If you wake up in the morning with 3 ideas, you probably want to start your own business.
Right.
Like a true entrepreneur every morning, like, oh, I could do this. I could do that. I could do. By the way, one of the challenges is then focusing on one of those. But that's kind of where it comes. And then you've got to be willing to put in the hard work, understanding the first couple of years are going to be the hardest. So hopefully one day. And then the other part of it is, if you decide, hey, I'm going to run a business, you got to decide, am I doing what we call a lifestyle practice where I'm just owning my own job? Or am I trying to hire people and build a team and all that? Those are two different things. I think the challenge for people is to make sure you know what you're doing and why, and make sure you understand how it impacts your personal finances. Because
go ahead. Sorry.
No, what happens is your personal and business finances end up getting all squished together.
Right.
I tell everybody, if you're going to start a business, pick up the books, Profit First. That's got a whole system on how you can actually keep your accounts. You got to keep them separate. You got to do taxes. You got to do all that paperwork. You can have a lot of success. But it's more of, do you want to do the work?
Right.
And is it worth it? There's a concept called return on hassle. Is it worth my time and effort? Mm-hmm. Or should I just go pick up an hourly job as a second job?
Right. So I think you're getting to a point where I would argue that entrepreneurialism, in terms of starting a full-blown cupcake shop, if you're running that every day, is different than a side gig in some ways. I think the connotation of a side gig is something more that is outside of your primary way of making money. And maybe you disagree, so maybe we'll get into that. But I would even say that side gigs are more someone, and they're very often someone saying either, I want to make more money, to your point, which is where the McDonald's rule definitely comes in and goes, what's the easiest way for me to make some more money? Or it's look, I love woodworking. I'm not going to start taking orders, but I'm happy to sell my stuff that I do make for fun or something like that, where you already have like warned of the potential downsides of doing something like that. But I would argue that side gigs are a little bit different than full blown quitting your job and starting a business. I think that's a little bit separate. That's now your primary gig, at least in my thought. Would you disagree with that? Agree with that? What are your thoughts?
So I intentionally lump them together because both of them you're running your own small business.
Sure.
Okay, it's a question of what level. So when I work with people that are going to start that cupcake shop, I want them to start small, like literally cooking them out of their kitchen,
Right. Yeah.
and then grow over time. So when they make the jump from work, it's not as big of a jump. And yes, that does switch your side gig and your primary gig. Interestingly enough, a lot of people when they like start a small business still end up working another job to help pay the bills,
Mhm.
unless you happen to have the extra money hanging around.
Right.
But I think what's happened is we've like mixed like marketing terms,
Right.
saying side gig and small business are different. No, you are running a small business.
Sure.
You're just using an app for marketing in that case. Or, like I have people that do things like on Upwork or Fiverr or whatever. They're just
Right.
using that for marketing and saying this is a side gig. They're just running a small business marketing
Right.
through some app or website.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. True. I don't disagree with you on that point. I think the intention potentially is what makes it a little bit different. Whereas it's almost more of a question of how much time are you allocating towards this? Whereas a side gig, I very often think that it's going to be a fewer amount of hours in compared to your primary source of your primary job potentially, but maybe it changes over time. Maybe the plan is to change that over time. To your point, you want to start a cupcake shop. Well, you're starting with, you're making 4 dozen cupcakes for someone's birthday that they ordered from you on a weekend, and 6 or 12 months from now, you need a storefront at that point, or an actual more like commercial kitchen. That'd be fast growing cupcake store, but still, I think that is a good point. And my dad is a CPA, and he was working as like a comptroller at a company or a nonprofit, and started filing taxes on the side. And then by the time he got to like 40 or 50 clients, which isn't that much income for someone preparing taxes, stepped away from his day job and, to your point, of kind of like slowly grew it and then transitioned to being an entrepreneur. So I think that's also a gateway, is using the stereotypical, or at least my definition of a side gig, to beginning an entrepreneurial kind of venture in general. So I do think that a lot of the same things apply from full blown starting a business and a side gig, because I agree they're both businesses. I think scale is the question often.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think what you're asking is if I'm doing something because I want to make extra money versus something because I have a passion, which is part of it. I can start a
Right.
passion as a side gig
Right.
or a small business. Or I'm just broke and I need more money coming in.
Right.
Now, if you're broke and just need more money coming in, yep, a side gig's an option. So is a part-time job. So, or, whatever.
Right.
I think that the difference is, I'm just trying to get people to think about, is the amount of work that goes into it. So, okay, great. Right now on the internet, everybody's like, well, I want to be a content creator, whatever the heck that means. I guess
Yeah.
that's us now because we're doing a podcast.
Yeah. We are now content creators. Okay.
I
We're
have no
so
clue what
cool
that
now.
is.
We're like the youth these days now. We're cool. We're in the in.
Yeah, you're like 10 years younger than me. So I guess but so, okay, cool. I want to be a content creator. And by the way, content creators make lots of money. No, they don't.
No.
Well, some content creators make a lot of money.
Right. Right.
Like this very small percentage make a lot of money.
Correct.
And by the way, they go, well, average content creator makes, well, that assumes these people at the top that are making millions. I saw something the other day. It was one of the content creators making like, it was 20 million a month off of this. And I was like, how in the world are people paying this person $20? They're selling products, all that. But I'm like, $20 million a month to just like take photos and put them online. I'm like, okay, cool. If that's your side gig, fine. But the truth is, most of those don't pay.
Right.
And you have to hit certain numbers before you can monetize and all that things that go with it. That to me is you're running a business.
Right.
Now, if your hobby is taking pictures of food and you want to put it online, fine, that's a hobby. It might turn into a business if people like it, but its primary purpose is not for it. So I think it's a question of what's your purpose? If your purpose is I got to make rent this month,
Right.
and that's why I'm picking up a side gig. I'm just trying to make a little extra. Fine. But that's where people get in trouble, where I have
Right.
people like they're like, how come I owe 10 grand on my taxes this year? I'm like, because you drove for Uber for half of it to make some
Right.
extra
Right.
money and you
Yeah.
didn't take taxes out.
Right. And they have that ugly surprise. Yeah, where I think you have a really good point. And I do like this quite a bit. And again, we're going back to the McDonald's rule. Doesn't have to be McDonald's. But the idea of if you're just trying to make some money, pick up a part-time job oftentimes. You don't necessarily need to have the passion for it. Whereas passion project, you don't necessarily need the money, but if it comes along, great. And that's a very different endeavor. Because I think I'm kind of the same way where now that we've started doing podcasting, I'm like, oh, I can kind of see how this can be a fun way to force yourself to dive into something. I'm an avid reader and a bit of like a World War II geek. I really find the history interesting. I'm like, well, I could technically start a podcast highlighting specific soldiers and their stories or something like that from World War II, which would be really cool. But do I expect to make money from something like that? Probably not. I don't imagine I'd ever make money from something like that. But again, it comes down to motive. Do you want to do it because you enjoy it, or do you want to do it because you are looking to make money? Do you think there are any times when someone's looking to make money, but I guess, yeah, you came back to, never mind. That was going to be a question about when they shouldn't go get a job, and you're like, yeah, the McDonald's rule, dude.
So, okay, so let me go further in my McDonald's rule because I love this. The local McDonald's is now starting to offer pay each day when you work.
Wow.
So literally, I work 4 hours, get my pay right then and there. So it became a real like side gig essentially.
Right.
I mean, they're desperate for help. I mean, it doesn't have to be McDonald's; it can be any fast food. But I just happen to see McDonald's is offering the same day pay, 14 to 17 bucks an hour, in an area where minimum wage is 7.25. Sounds like a good combo to
I feel
me.
like everyone would be going for that. Everyone. That's a
But
stretch, but many people would.
people go, well, I'm going to go drive for Uber. Well, how many hours are you waiting for something? Are you moving around? Are you getting tips? What's going to happen? And what's it cost to run the car? What's it cost for mileage? What's it cost? I don't know if you're going to break 15 bucks an hour or not. You'd have to do the
Right.
math. People go, well, I don't want to work at McDonald's. Well, what do you want? I want money. Well, then go work at McDonald's. Like,
Right. Right.
you get stuck in this.
Yeah. So when you're helping, I mean, if someone comes to you and asks about a side gig, I think that's a really important consideration of there are expenses associated with running your own business, right? And I think very often people go, oh, yeah, Uber says that we can make an average of like 18 bucks an hour. McDonald's is only paying 16 bucks an hour. Like, I think I'll just do the Uber thing. I like talking to people, whatever. Okay, you do that, but you don't think necessarily your first thought isn't, oh, I need to improve my insurance and get additional coverage through my provider, which is going to cost me more. I have to pay for my own, I don't know how the Uber compensation structure is, but I'm guessing you pay for your own fuel and maintenance on the car and all this kind of stuff. And before you know it, your net profit on that's 12 bucks an hour, not 18 bucks an hour. And now you're in a worse position than if you just went and made the 16 at McDonald's. So I think that's a really good consideration with side gigs is know what expenses are going into it because it is a business and look at every aspect of that. If you do make quite a bit, there is the opportunity to contribute to retirement plans. We're not going to get too far in depth today on what that would look like for you. Talk to a financial professional, but they should be able to help you figure out which one's suitable for you if you are getting to the point where your cupcake shop has turned into, I would say, a beyond a side gig at that point, and you're actually making pretty good money. Are there any other considerations for people working side gigs, particularly if they start taking off a little bit?
Yeah, I think the other one to look for is it depends on your state if there's other licenses or permits you need. So,
Hmm.
for example, I was working with somebody who wanted to start a handyman business, which
Hmm.
actually pays pretty well. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a go in and fix people's toilets or repair walls, like just basic stuff. Cool. Like, we had done some research. The average market was something like 50 bucks an hour is what they charge.
Nice.
Now, mind you have to have your own tools, your own truck, and you have to have the skills. Then we found out, oh, by the way, in that state, you had to have a permit for that and insurance and a bond. And then we did the math and we're like, cool. So he went to work at Lowe's,
Right. Right.
like for half the price. Well, what
Right.
it was is after all that, you find that balance again. And I think that's the challenge.
Right.
Also, depending on your area, you may actually have to run into zoning laws. So, I lived in Connecticut, and if you opened any business, you had to have a home business permit. Like even just me hanging on my computer, I have to have a business permit for zoning.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm doing financial planning online. They're like, that's a business.
Yeah. I think I
Now,
had to do something like that too. I mean, I did it a year ago, but I think I do have something like that where it's a residential operated business or something where you have to basically declare it.
yep. And so those are the type of things you got to watch out for. It's more than just, I'm on the app, let's go.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think it's true. A lot of them do require mailing addresses as well that aren't PO boxes when you register. Do you think most side gigs, and this might get into another can of worms here, do you think you need to set up any kind of formal entity structure for it, or do you think you can just run it through your own name?
I mean, some states setting up an LLC is like $25 in 2 minutes online at the state of Secretary of State. Fine, I mean that's
Right.
one way to do it. I think that the corporate structure matters less. I think following the rules matters. Another one, people talk, well, I want to rent out a room as a side gig. I'm going to do Airbnb.
Hmm.
A lot of towns and states are now saying, no, you can't do that.
Hmm.
They're like, well, I'm just going to do it until I get caught. Oh, now you're asking for trouble.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think there are a lot of considerations when starting that. I think, again, depending what you're doing, if you're going in people's homes, dealing with their property, or interacting with them directly, insurance is probably going to be something to consider. Liability protections, if you are fixing someone's drywall and the ceiling fan falls out or something while you're working on it, that you could potentially be liable for that. And then your $50 an hour doesn't seem like a great deal anymore. And I think you can kind of see that across various side gigs that you're going to come across potential for liability risk that you want to make sure you have covered. All right. Well, we didn't get into very many specific side gigs. I think it's very dependent upon the person, what their skills are, what their passions are, what their motives are. And those are all things that each individual needs to figure out for themselves. But I guess at the end of the day, if I'm going to give you the thumbs up or down, are you generally in support of side gigs, against side gigs? What are your thoughts?
I'm in support of side gigs as long as they're done right.
Fair. With the caveat, do it right, all in favor. I think I'm the same way, particularly for child-free. Early on, we made the point that a lot of us, and of course not all of us, have some extra time. We don't have soccer practice to run to for kids or anything like that. So in that time, you can run an Etsy shop. You can bake cupcakes. You can, I don't know, be a gardener for the whole neighborhood or something like that. Those are all things that are available to you, and being able to generate some extra income, which ultimately can fund other goals, whether it's travel, retiring early, or whatever that might be. But that's something that I think I'm also in favor of, as long as you don't, again, put too much effort, time, all that stuff towards it. You don't want to find yourself working 80 hours. That's what we all often want to avoid. I guess some people still do, but I think, yeah, generally side gigs are great. Very much so. Talk to a financial professional, figure out what's suitable for you. And I think that's final thoughts from me. Anything else from you, Dr. J?
Hey, you know what? My question is, what do you enjoy? Use your time to do that. And do I really enjoy driving Uber for $18 an hour? Yes, do it. Now, find it to something else.
Go to McDonald's. All right. Thanks, Dr. J. And thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll be back next week.
Child-Free Life and Money is an educational and entertainment podcast only. For further disclosure, look at our websites at www.anthrophywealth.com or www.childfreewealth.com. Either way, consult with your financial planner to see if anything we discuss pertains to you. Thanks for listening.